Hi, I'm Dr. Carl Knox, Associate Professor of Saxophone and Director of Jazz Studies at Central Connecticut State University. I'm here today to talk to you about the regional jazz auditions for the saxophone. The auditions materials are different for the alto and the tenor. However, the alto and the baritone are the same. So I'll talk about tenor saxophone first, and then I'll switch to alto saxophone later on. The auditions are divided into 3 sections. There's an etude required, and then improvisation, and then there'll be some sight reading. The etude portion for the tenor saxophone in 2016 is etude number 14 from Advanced Jazz Conception by Lenny Niehaus. The wonderful thing about the Lenny Niehaus books are that all the articulations are indicated. Everything you need to do is on the page. So follow the directions, take it at a moderate tempo, and practice it very slowly to begin with. I would play it somewhere around to begin with, and then gradually bring it up to a more moderate tempo. I'll be playing the etude today in 3 sections. The first section will be lines 1 through 5. Second section will be line 6 through the second line on the second page. The final section will be lines 3 through the end of the second page. For the improvisation portion of the audition, you'll be required to play from Jamie Ebersold's Volume 2, Nothing But Blues, track number 5, Fast Blues in B flat. You'll need to play the melody for 1 chorus, 4 choruses of improvisation, and then play the melody out.
1, 2, 3, 4.
For the alto saxophone, the required etude is a Charlie Parker solo taken from the Charlie Parker Omnibook. In this case, it's Now's the Time, number 1. This particular solo was taken from a 1945 recording that I really encourage you to find. I went on to iTunes last night and I found 9 different versions of Now's the Time, 5 or 6 of which were this particular solo. So you just need to preview them. You know, you get a 30-second preview. Maybe it's even a minute. And the previews of this particular solo all started before the double time on the 3rd line there. They all started about there. So you'll know that it's that solo when you hear that preview. Purchase the AAC file or the MP3 file. If it's an AAC file, when you get it into iTunes, convert it to an MP3, and then you can put it into Windows Media Player, and then you can slow it down. Windows Media Player has the ability to slow files down immediately in the same octave. So you can slow it down. I would start it at half speed. A couple of things to consider. In the 3rd and 4th measures of the 1st line, Charlie Parker has a series of Ds. He's got 5 Ds in a row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he doesn't simply articulate them as it's written. But on every other one, starting with the 2nd one, he adds the high D key. So that's an old sort of tenor player trick, like tenor players of Lester Young's era, so of the 1930s and 40s, would often play. But in this case, Charlie Parker keeps the regular D fingering and simply adds the high D key. And you can hear that clearly when you listen to it. On the 4th line, the 4th measure, there are 2 16th notes on the and of 1 that Charlie Parker double tongues. Now, not being a master of double tonguing, I can tell you that it's fairly difficult to develop a double tongue really quickly. You have until November, so you have a few months. I suggest you use a takata or tukatu syllable. I've worked on it a bit. I've not been double tonguing previous to this, so something like this. Those are pretty good. If it comes out that well when I perform it, I'll be very pleased. However, I wouldn't worry too much. I wouldn't single tongue them. I would try to double tongue them because single tongue is just too slow. And it's clear that Charlie Parker double tongues those 2 16th notes. So if you can work on your double tonguing, that will help just for that particular measure. On the 2nd page, I'm adding a few notes that I believe that the solo is incorrectly transcribed. I'm not encouraging you to play the notes that I'm adding because the adjudicators will be judging you on what's written in front of you. But on the 4th line, the 2nd measure, it's written, and I add a D sharp in there on the 2nd note. And I think that's the correct transcription. And then on the very last line, the 2nd measure, the last beat, you have 4 16th notes. You have written B flat, D flat, D natural, E, and I think it's more accurately F sharp, A, C natural, E. So instead of being, which is what's written, I think is what Charlie Parker really plays. Now with regard to phrasing, because there are no phrasing marks, or very few, there are a few ties and that's it. We use what's called offbeat tonguing, meaning that you tongue on the ands of the beats. And Charlie Parker does that pretty consistently throughout. There are times when he tongues 2 notes in a row. There are times when he slurs, especially the really fast 16th notes. He doesn't necessarily articulate every other note in those passages. But for the most part, Charlie Parker plays with offbeat tonguing. Where we're tonguing on the ands of the beats. So practice that. I suggest you do that when you're playing your scales. fast you play them or always offbeat tonguing. So get used to that by practicing it away from the solo. So this is Charlie Parker's solo on Now's the Time. As with the tenor, the improvisation for the alto saxophone and the baritone saxophone for that matter will again be track number 5 from Jamie Aebersold's Volume 2, Nothing But Blues. So this is fast blues in B flat.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The final portion of your audition will be sight reading. And while I can't tell you what the sight reading will be, I can give you a few hints on what to look for. First of all, start with the time signature. Make sure that you know how many beats are in each measure. Likely it'll be in common time, in 4/4 time, but make sure. Secondly, look at the key signature. See how many sharps and flats there are. And then look down through the piece and look for accidentals. Look for double sharps, double flats, naturals, things that deviate from the key signature. And then look for syncopated rhythms. Look for rhythms that are unusual. There will likely be some very difficult rhythms scattered throughout the etude. Sometimes the etudes are so hard they're just full of difficult rhythms from the very first measure to the last measure. But if it's something that's more playable, look for the unusual measures, the measures that have difficult rhythms in them. And then go to the beginning of the etude and just mentally play through the first measure or two so that when you start, you have a really good, solid start. Spend a good bit of time on that, a good bit of your time, And then lastly, make sure you take the maximum amount of time that you're given by the adjudicators. If you're given a minute, take a full minute. Take a minute and 1 second if you can. If you're given 30 seconds, take 31 seconds. Take the maximum amount of time you can to look over the excerpt, and then do your best. And keep going. Don't stop. That's very important. Once you begin, just keep going. Go all the way to the end. Everyone will be making mistakes. No one will play it perfectly, so just keep going, keep confident, and do your best to get all the way through it. So that concludes this demonstration. I hope you do very well for the 2016 Jazz Regional Auditions, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.